When you look at Europe and you look at agriculture in particular, I think this is something that needs a lot more research. But the Mediterranean for the last, 5,000, 8,000 years has provided a stabilizing impact on Europe's agriculture, which has allowed us to grow the sort of agriculture that we have today. The Mediterranean is heating up at somewhere between 20 and 50% faster than the rest of the world's oceans. Why? Because it's a great big lake in many respects, with a tiny hole at Gibraltar that allows water to come from the Atlantic. So it is heating up under its own steam. The Eastern Mediterranean is 7 degrees higher, surface temperature is 7 degrees higher than Western Mediterranean already.
We've actually got to build ahead of the point where Trump's political base suddenly wake up to the fact that this is not delivering what they thought that it would do. So you're going to have people starting to ask the question, if not that, then what? And my sense of the challenge for us all, not just Acciona, not just business, anyone involved in this sort of change agenda, is we've got to collaborate, we've got to converge, we've got to agree on a much more coordinated overall strategy.
And the situation looks fairly scary at a national level as well. So when we look at this at a national level, a country level, we've worked with the University of Leeds and researchers there and other places to figure out what does this look like for specific countries. A particular picture emerges of high-income countries that meet a lot of their people's needs, but by vastly overusing their fair share of the planet's boundaries, and actually low-income countries, particularly Sub-Saharan Africa, bits of Latin America, bits of South Asia and Southeast Asia, where the opposite is true, where they're not using anywhere near their own fair share of the planet's boundaries, but are falling short even more on life's essentials.
We saw that the Edelman Trust Barometer found that businesses still enjoy the highest level of confidence among populations, which is quite, I found it surprising. So people do trust businesses more than they trust governments in general, more than they trust the media, more than they trust NGOs. So I do think there's a very strong role, especially for environmentally responsible, or in general, societally responsible organizations and businesses, to take a leading role in mending some of the divisions and also restoring trust in the important institutions, and also in raising awareness about the important challenges that we are facing, in particular regarding the climate crisis.
Innovation is one of the critical levers that we can use in that space, but not innovation in the way in which we have been doing it, and in which most businesses innovate their core business models. This is not a job for product and service diversification. It's not a job for single solutions, single sectoral kind of technology-focused interventions, and single solutions through startups and scale-ups. It requires a fundamentally different build, using a systemic approach to innovation to address massive, interdependent, intertwined systemic transformation challenges. A lot of our work is about doing that. How do you turn that? How do you design for that? How do you turn that on? How do you build it as a capability for industry, for businesses, small and large, for cities, for regions, for governments? And how do you put a whole system of alliancing together around multiple stakeholders so that it is possible to start putting on the ground the wherewithal of an economy, a next generation economy that is fully net neutral, and that is resilient.
We are entering climate action 2, slowly but surely. This is exciting because it means people will want to do this. Companies will want to do this. Not because it's the right thing to do, not because somebody glued themselves to the airport runway, but because it's better strategy and it's better business. There are opportunities to generate and devise and design and deliver products and services for public and private and mixed benefit that also happen to address our biodiversity problems and our clean water problems and our pollution problems and our climate problems.
My personal view is that value is actually intrinsic to life. I just don't think that it's something that you can pin down or say, oh, that was specifically because of this or that activity. But having said that, I'm an accountant. I'm also a pragmatist. And so I do realize that we need to work with current market realities. So you've probably heard even today, there's a lot of talk about systemic financing and how to do that. But in practice, it's really, really hard to do. So what we've been looking at is how can we actually connect these like local knowledge and value flows that we all know are there, and how can we match them to systemic level financing and decision making? And one way we're doing this is by developing what we're calling multi-capital models. And really, this is about linking quite a few tools together and then bringing people into new agreement spaces.
As a more deep way of doing things, I believe, is the creation of culture. As I said, the coral reef is made by interactions. It's made by a culture. It's made of how all this individual species live together. So I really believe that for human society to evolve, and seeing ourselves in an evolution process that we need to have developed culture, develop the logic of a regenerative culture.
As the farmers in the old days would say, I have to leave the farm in a better state for my children than it was when I got it. How can we bring that basic idea that is both conservative and shall we say, traditional into economics? So we start tuning down the extractive over extraction of natural assets and make sure that we at least give as much back as we take. It's not really that difficult because nature is so flourishing and so bountiful if we really just give it a chance. And that's the wonderful thing with working with natural capital. It's not dead. It's bouncing back the minute it gets respect, whether it's a freshwater system or a forest.
The new system is not just the old system with different technology. It's fundamentally, so we use the analogy of that comes from a Buckminster Fuller quote that I love, which is that there's nothing about a caterpillar that tells you it's going to become a butterfly.
Yes.
Right. So, for instance, you can't understand the new energy system by looking at the old system and just thinking, we're just going to unplug gas and coal and plug in solar and wind. What you get when you do that is essentially what we term a caterpillar with wings stuck on. Right? It's never going to fly. And that's what we're doing with our, around the world as we look to build a clean energy system. What we're essentially building is that horrible chimera.
Because humans, contrary to popular belief, are not rational beings, neither in the elections, nor in our life choices, nor, unfortunately, even in a lot of our professional environment. We often do not act upon rationale. What I say is that fundamentally, it is those that control the fantasy that control the future. We are so driven by the narrative. And when it comes to how we perceive the future, in fact, the narratives that have been driving not just the popular perception, but even the actual funding of scientific research and technological development have been narratives of fiction. Fundamentally, technology is not some kind of magic bullet. It's not a panacea. In a way, if the problem is social, cultural, and political, the solution needs to be too. And technology is merely an extension of our bodies and our minds. If it is deemed to be real innovation, it should not be something that just sort of patches up with a plaster a massive crack in the concrete. It has to address these foundational issues. And so we really need to start thinking of technological tools simply as tools, as assistive aids, but it is us. It is humanity that is the answer, not technology per se.